Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Well, as you know, one of our favorite things to do is to talk to conservative authors or authors with the other side of the story, people who have a dissident opinion. Tragically, it's very rare in our media literature landscape. But what a pleasure to have such a thoughtful book published today against the establishment opinion on COVID-19. The title of the new book is called COVID-19, The Politics of a Pandemic Moral Panic. And that's exactly what it is, isn't it? And it's published by the Frontier Center for Public Policy, one of the good guys, that's for sure. It's co-authored with Marco Navarro-Gini and Dr. Barry Cooper, who joins us today via Zoom. Dr. Cooper, great to see you again. Congratulations on this book. And I have to say, I'm a little bit surprised that Amazon is even letting you sell it, because they have censored other books that take a skeptical view of the pandemic moral panic.
Well, what we do, I mean, we footnote things up the yin yang. We got, I don't know how many hundred footnotes. So it's actually not meant to be a polemical discussion of all of the misinformation and kind of goofiness around COVID-19. It really is a scholarly analysis. And we use, believe it or not, a certified lefty intellectual, Michel Foucault, to provide the main conceptual lens through which we look at all this stuff, namely his concept of what in French he calls it pouvoir savoir, power knowledge. And that, we think, is the central issue in all of this nonsense that's been going on.
Well, you talk about an idea that was popularized about 50 years ago in a book written by Stanley Cohen called Folk Devils and Moral Panics. And right away, I think you're getting into it because it's an emotional thing, it's a faith thing, it's a superstition thing. Without even, I have not read that book, Folk Devils and Moral Panics, but right away I'm thinking the madness of the Salem witch trials. I'm thinking of madnesses, maybe even some anti-Semitic pogroms. Oh, the Jews have poisoned our well. We have to get rid of the Jews. Or some of the superstitions that grew up around the Great Plague, the Black Death. I think that there's a great psychological fear over things. I mean, listen, the COVID-19 is a real disease, and it has killed around 17,000 Canadians. But I point out that the flu on any given year kills 8,500. So it's twice as bad as an average flu year. But this is not the apocalypse that our political class says it is, or am I wrong?
No, that's exactly right. When the guy who's a sociologist in the UK, you're probably too young to remember the Mods and the Rockers. I remember them. I didn't realize until I started studying this stuff in graduate school that in the UK, this was almost seen as the end of the world as we know it. A bunch of young men, mainly, going down to Brighton and fighting each other. This was supposed to be some kind of apocalyptic event that would end civilization in the UK. Well, that attitude can be transferred to all of the examples, the historical examples you just cited, and it is certainly important in the COVID panic.
I just have your blurb here, the book, and I want to read it because it's really in bullet point form. And this really, I think you've grasped the way of thinking here. Let me read just 50 words. The process occurs in stages. 1, an event or perhaps a person is defined as a threat, perhaps only a vague threat to existing values, traditions, or interests. 2, the event is simplified and presented in the mass and now social media in a stereotypical way. 3, moral barricades are manned by editors, politicians, experts, and other right-thinking people and socially authorized knowers. 4, ways of coping with the disturbance are developed. And eventually 5, the public profile of the disturbance, event, individual, etc., declines and is forgotten or is retained as a memory and as a diffuse or potential threat. The folk devil, I really think that's the thinking going on. And I think people wearing masks, it's like they're maybe in the past they would have worn a garlic around their neck to be immune from a Dracula, or even a religious rosary or something. I think the mask is a quasi-religious pagan symbol of, oh, I'm a believer, I'm against the folk devil, be gone, folk devil, be gone. Oh, you're not wearing your mask? You must be in league with the folk devil.
Yes, exactly. The number of people who have, I just encounter them in stores, some of whom are wearing masks, some of whom are not, have said exactly that it's their customers who come in who are not wearing masks. They are treated by other customers as if they're somehow, infected. Those who are think of themselves as being morally superior. What they don't seem to get the symbolism. I mean, the whole point of a mask is to shut you up. The experimental evidence on the effect of masks is, let's say, mixed. Nobody wants to talk about that. So you get these authoritative doctors saying one thing and other equally certified doctors saying other things. And so normal people just get confused and they say, well, I guess I better do what everybody else is doing. And that's why they do it.
One of the interesting things in the last month, Doctor, is how many of this official class, you talked about the official knowers, the high priests of this moral panic, how many of them have in their personal and sometimes private and even sneaky conduct have exempted themselves from the rituals that they command us to do. I'm talking about politicians going away on a sunny beach here in Ontario. You had one doctor take 5 vacations. Now he just gets a $1 million severance. A police chief who's enforcing the laws, he goes to the beach. And by the way, I'm all for going to warm and sunny beaches, but these are the enforcers of the new austerity. And I think this is how it always is that all these inquisitors, all these investigators, they don't believe in it. And B, they're the biggest hypocrites of all. What effect, if any, do you think that this almost daily discovery of lockdown cheaters, and I'm only using that word for the lockdown enforcers who cheat. You and I are normal humans trying to live our lives, but when an enforcer is caught lockdown cheating, what do you think the impact of that is, Doctor?
I would say that the first impact is that nobody says we're all in this together anymore. You remember that slogan, a meaningless slogan. We haven't heard that lately because everybody in this country and in most other countries know we're not all in this together, particularly when these enforcers and other authorized important people go off to Hawaii or to the West Indies or something like that. We've never really been in it together. Everyone has known from at least last March, probably from February, that the effect of this virus on human populations is is differentiated. I mean, old people who are sick are the ones who get it and have serious effects. And then there are huge problems with the statistics. Do you die with or from COVID? There's been so much evidence about people who die with it are diagnosed as having died from it. And people know this. And so they simply distrust, and I would say quite properly, distrust these self-styled authorities because they are not really authoritative. They refuse to acknowledge what they don't know. And the rest of us can figure that out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the absurd case of someone falling off a ladder, dying from falling off a ladder, and it was tagged as a COVID-19 death. So how do we get out of this? Because I think that things are getting worse, not better in 2021. I mean, I recall, and I point out, that the mandatory masks were not brought in until August, September, when the months after the pandemic peaked in early mid-April. So the masks all came in together in August, September. And now the vaccine, I'm certain we're going to have vaccine passports, freedom passports, flying passport, whatever you want to call them. I think things are about to get tougher. And I think all these previous waves of civil liberties violations, those were just to condition us to, I mean, now they've got curfews in Quebec and they're talking about it in Ontario. What's the end game here? Like, what's next? Is this how it's going to be forever?
That's a very good question. it would take a kind of responsibility among our politicians for which there is absolutely no evidence at the present for them to start behaving responsibly. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, Lord Acton did not say absolute power makes you more generous. It is a very corrupting thing in terms of our entire political system. And it divides in terms of the lack of trust that ordinary Canadians have for their political leaders. It's not going to end well. I can't see how our politicians are going to actually use some common sense for a change. They certainly haven't in the last year.
Yeah, you know, I'm pretty sure we're heading into a spring election. Justin Trudeau shuffled his cabinet. They're making announcements that sound like they're clearing the decks for a campaign. The media is in almost complete support of the lockdown. There's a few skeptics out there, but I really think they're an anomaly. Opposition parties are either silent or egging on the governments to do more. The only government in Canada that has tried to put on the brakes a bit is Jason Kenney in Alberta, and he was undermined by his own caucus, and the media has just been pillaring him. I can't see any organized opposition to this. Doctors who speak out are getting complaints to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. I see no institution that's acting as a brake here. I see a lot acting as an accelerator, but none acting as a brake.
Yeah, I agree entirely. On the other side, reality is still what it is. And, eventually reality, as all of the climate change guys say, reality gets the last innings at bat. I mean, we'll see. I suspect, I'm not in the business of predicting, but I suspect that there may be a sufficient number of Canadians who say this. We have a technical term in political science. The short form is BS. This is so much BS that we're not going to take it anymore. But that will lead to some very serious, I would say, political disorders. But I can't see any other way out.
Huh. We're talking to Dr. Barry Cooper, the author of the new book, COVID-19, The Politics of a Pandemic Moral Panic. You know, I don't wear a mask. I sometimes wear a mask exemption button just to stop scolds from coming up to me. I have noticed in the last 2 months a souring of the public mood, whereas people never used to remark or anything. Now I see people with masks on that are either not wearing them properly or clearly hate wearing them, coming up to me and scolding me. And I think it's because they have a cognitive dissonance. They hate the masks, they're irritated by it. I think their own use of the mask is in a manner that indicates they don't really believe in it. But they're saying, if I have to do this, you have to also. It's not that they're actually worried about the virus. They're just saying, how come you're not complying like I am? There's a sourness there I didn't notice until a few months ago. I don't know. It reminds me of how people in the Soviet Union used to live. There was your public face, and then there's your secret, honest talk that you would have only with true friends and close family members. You had a public facade and then a private facade. And you always had to worry about informants and snitches, which, by the way, we're seeing again. I wonder if all the compliant mask wearers and people cheering along, if they secretly know that this whole thing is a scam. I don't know. I just sense a sourness out there against people who are not believers.
What comes after the sourness and these sort of laser looks of disgust when you're not wearing your mask are jokes. The Soviet Union was famous for its very funny and completely critical of the establishment jokes. So when, say, Theresa Tam gets ridiculed, that's a good sign. When the Prime Minister gets ridiculed because of this, that will be a good sign. And I suspect it will be coming fairly soon.
You know what? I take your point. And of course, jokes, I mean, the Ayatollah says there are no jokes in Islam. He hated jokes. Stalin, I mean, he sent, I think Solzhenitsyn was sent to the Gulag for writing a joke about Stalin's mustache.
Yes.
But both of those stories, make the point that, yeah, jokes are a sign of rebellion. Was it Orwell who said every joke is a little revolution? I think it was him. But that didn't stop Solzhenitsyn from being sent to the Gulag. So we can make jokes, but as they're still cracking down on us, as they're giving us $6,000 curfew fines in Montreal, you can joke about that gallows humor, black humor, but the jackboot is still there. If you're banned from Twitter, if you're banned from flying on an airplane, you can make all the jokes you like, but it doesn't make the situation any much better, though.
That's absolutely correct. This form of tyranny is what Hannah Arendt called administrative tyranny. And she said something very interesting about it. It is the worst kind of tyranny because the desperate measure of tyrannicide is not available. It is just an administrative blob about which most of us are, and we can be ironic, we can make jokes and so on, but we still have to put up with the mask police. We still have to put up with dirty looks when we go into co-op and we're not wearing a mask. But, you know, you have to do what you have to do, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't mind the dirty looks, and I don't even mind the scolding. I assure you I give better than I get. But it's the cops with guns and tasers. Like it's the cops screaming at Ocean Weisblatt on that outdoor hockey arena in Calgary and threatening to taser him. That's what I don't know how to deal with. And I'm worried that there will be much worse things before things get better. In the meantime, Dr. Cooper, congratulations on your book. We'll have a link to it underneath this video. And I think I'd like to send this video out to our viewers across Canada because I think they'd be very interested in hearing your thoughtful points. The book is called COVID-19, The Politics of a Pandemic, Moral Panic. I think that's such a helpful way of looking at it. Yes, it is a real disease that has killed twice the annual death toll of the annual flu. It is, but the civil liberties restrictions, the diminution of Parliament, the overweening powers of the police, that has nothing to do with the virus. That has everything to do with, as Dr. Cooper says, absolute power. Thanks for your time today. I wish you good luck with this book. And, we'll have to have you back on to talk more about this in the future.
Thanks, Ezra.
All right, you take care. There you have it. Dr. Barry Cooper, co-author of the book with Marco Navarogini, and you can get it at the link. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.